You kneel beside a pregnant woman who has gone into labor. There is no hospital room around you, no medical equipment, and no trained doctors. Instead, only a few women are gathered close, offering support. You press gently on her stomach to guide the baby downward, just as you once saw your mother do. Someone behind her rubs her back and tells her to breathe, again and again. You stretch out your hands and wait. When the baby finally comes, you are ready to catch it. Welcome to Vestiges of Violence. Here, we talk about survivors. For Human Angle, I am Sabika. Adisu Abba is a 45-year-old widow and the mother of 5 children. She comes from Dikwa, Borno State, in Nigeria's northeast. Long before violence disrupted her life, she had already begun learning the work that would define her role in her community. She had learned how to help women deliver their babies. Her first lesson came when she was pregnant with her own child. Her mother, a midwife, had delivered her baby, and she remembered every detail. Watching her mother work left an impression on her, and she too wanted to serve others. So, she followed in her mother's footsteps, becoming a traditional birth attendant and assisting in bringing new life into the world.
When I saw her do it, I began to wonder how I could also learn this work. After the birth of my first child, I slowly started helping other women when they went into labor.
At first, it was simply helping neighbors, but over time, word spread and people began calling her from other places. Sometimes, men from nearby towns would come to ask her to help their wives through childbirth. But the insurgency that spread across northeastern Nigeria eventually reached Adisu's community and affected her directly. Armed groups moved through villages and towns, and ordinary life became unpredictable and dangerous. At one point, Adisu found herself delivering babies for women among the terrorists. Her captivity began on what should have been a normal day. She had gone out to harvest beans, and by the time she finished the work, evening had already fallen, and there were no commercial vehicles available to take her back home. So she sat by the roadside, hoping that a passing car might still appear. Instead, a motorcycle stopped. They were Boko Haram insurgents.
They asked me where I was coming from. I told them I had gone to the bush to harvest beans and that it had become late. They told me to get on their motorcycle. I was shaking because I was afraid they might shoot me if I refused, so I climbed on.
She was taken away that day, and for the next 3 years she lived in captivity. Life in the bush was harsh and exhausting because they constantly had to flee attacks from the Nigerian army. Adisu rarely slept and found no peace. Even in captivity, there were pregnant women who went into labor, and because there were no doctors or clinics, Adisu's midwifery skills were needed. In those 3 years, she delivered 5 babies. The births followed the same basic methods she had learned from her mother long ago. But the difference between delivering babies back home and doing so in captivity was obvious. There were no medications and no injections, and many women died during labor because there was no medical help. Additionally, the danger around them sometimes made it impossible to save lives. There was a time the army struck the terrorists' den and everyone started running. A woman was in labor, and though she wanted to run, she couldn't. There was no way Adisu could carry her, so she made the difficult decision to leave her behind. Eventually, after screaming and crying and fighting for her life, the woman died. One day during another offensive, an opportunity to escape appeared. Adisu and a few other captives took the chance. As soldiers chased the terrorists, they fled, and for days they kept running, hoping to reach the soldiers who could take them back to safety. When they finally did, exhaustion had taken over.
I was shaking and shivering by that time. The soldiers gave us water and bread. Then they later carried us in their vehicle and brought us back into town.
Today, Adisu is rebuilding her life once again. When she returned from captivity, her children had surprisingly grown much older. 3 years later, she was resettled in Dikwa under the Borno State government's resettlement program. After years of fear and uncertainty, she returns home carrying the same knowledge she first learned from her mother, the knowledge that helps her safely bring new life into the world. This episode was reported by Hawa Shafi Inuhu, scripted and presented by Sabi Abello. Multimedia editor is Anthony Asamota, and executive producer is Ahmed Salkida. In order to protect the identities of survivors, we use voice actors for this episode. If you or anyone you know have a story to share on vestiges of violence, do not hesitate to get in touch with us.